This is Evan Abrams, and in this After Effects tutorial, we're going to be using Mocha AE CC. We're going to be doing some planar tracking, rotoscoping. We're going to be showing you this powerful planar tracker, this wonderful tool. If you're already using the newer versions of After Effects, you've already got it bundled in there. This is a powerful suite of tracking tools that can really help you out when Adobe's tracker kind of falls on its face. It uses a totally different methodology for tracking things. Like in this shot, where the actor has foolishly put their thumb over one of the corners we need for a 4-corner pin, and then they wave their finger around over the other points, just blocking and cutting them off and doing all kinds of crazy things. I don't know why they would use a tablet like, oh wait, it was me doing this, and I don't know how to use technology. A lot of the things I've done with this reader would make it difficult for Adobe's point tracker to do anything. Thankfully, Mocha's there to help, and I'll show you how with Mocha AE CC. So we've got After Effects open. How do we get Mocha onto our footage? Well, if we want to use Mocha, we just have to go to the effects and presets here and type in Mocha. And you've got Mocha AE CC. This is the free version that comes with Adobe After Effects, so it's yours to enjoy. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles that Mocha Pro does. Mocha Pro is pretty great. It's got a lot of motion blur tools. You can do 3D camera solves with it. You can remove things from a scene that you don't like with a couple of clicks of a button. It's phenomenal. If you want to upgrade to Mocha Pro, there's a link in the description to make that happen, and your old buddy Evan gets a kickback when that happens. So how do we use Mocha? Well, on this shot, we just want to stick this screen, this checkerboard screen, onto this screen here, and we'll replace the checkerboard with something else, something more exciting if we want. But we need to get data. So let's grab the Mocha AE CC, drag it out onto the layer here. We have this button that asks us to launch Mocha. So let's do that. We're going to launch it. And now we have another interface where we can look at the same footage. I'm looking at the classic version of the interface, but we could look at the essential version. I'm going to be using X to pan around and Z to zoom in and out. If we want to track the surface of this pad, I think first we want to make this finger not part of the equation. We want to tell Mocha, hey, I need you to forget that that finger is even here, all right? So we can take our X-spline here. We can make X-splines or Bezier splines, but I'm gonna make an X-spline, and I'm just gonna draw like a rough shape around this finger. Rough shape, cool finger, and I'm just gonna soften those up. With X-splines, if you haven't used them before, you have a point that is, a little vertex, and then our softness handle, how close to that vertex does the line actually get? So we end up with this kind of a shape. All right, that's cool. It's kind of a weird bean. And I'm just going to track this forward and backwards. So I'm going to track it back to the beginning. You see how it does using the power of GPUs. Ooh, it tracked it. Nice, it stayed on. And we're not being super precise. What we're doing right now isn't for the rotos. So all we're doing is getting the rough shape of this finger where it overlaps with this particular thing here. So I'm gonna need to set a little keyframe here, because then it gets a little wacky here. The purpose is really just to make sure that the places where the finger overlaps with the pad aren't going to be calculated. We don't need to worry about those areas because they're just going to get in the way. So just like that, we've got this finger taken care of. Let's take this layer and rename it Finger. It's a good name for a layer. We don't need to have this gear on it anymore because we're not going to be calculating anything for it. And I'm going to go to the layer properties and I'm going to say blend mode subtract, meaning I want to subtract this shape from another shape. And what's that other shape? Well, the other shape is going to be this pad. So this looks like a good frame to start drawing it. Grab the X-spline again. And I'm just going to draw out here. Oh, look at that wonderful shape. Excellent, excellent. And maybe we go here, here, here. So whenever you want to make a shape, you just left click, put some points, right click to close the shape, and there you go. So now we've got this rough shape. I'm actually going to tighten up these corners a little bit just because I want to make sure I have the most surface area possible so I can get a more reliable track. So this layer, I'm going to call this the tablet, and we're going to put that under the finger. So the finger is above the tablet because that's the way it is in our scene. That makes sense. And if we go here to the classic interface, We just move around. You'll notice the classic interface has a lot more stuff. Everything's arranged a little bit differently. We're going to work mostly in the essential interface, but if you feel you want to get to more advanced stuff, then get into the classic interface. That'll be for later tutorials. I just wanted to show you here that I can toggle on and off the layer mats, and we can see here, yep, the finger is cutting in. So if we scrub ahead to where the finger is over the thing, we haven't tracked it on yet, so don't worry about why this isn't lining up. But as you can see, the finger is cutting a hole in the shape. So that is subtracting from it. So Mocha won't have to look at those pixels to figure things out. All right, let's go back to the essential interface and let's track this thing. So we've got translation, scale, rotation, and skew on. I'm going to add perspective to the mix because this thing is going to be tipping towards and away from the camera. So it's going to have that little perspective shift a little bit. And now we're just going to track it. And look at it go. It's tracking. It's doing super well. It's getting that shape in there. Interesting. Good. Now we're going to track forward. There we go. Tracking forward from the keyframe. Looks like it's getting nice and stuck on there. And it is done. The bar's gone blue. That means we're done. Looking at this track, where are the four corners that are going to create our four-corner pin data? Well, I'm going to show the tracking surface here, and I'm going to tell it where that is. So I'm just going to move these into position. So I can grab them when it goes here. There we go. We're going to stick that there. And then we get our third corner. Oh, yes, right there. And then this corner, we kind of have to extrapolate. We have to say, well, I think it's around here, and then stick it right there. Cool. So now if we scrub through, you can see, oh, yeah, that's kind of locked in, isn't it? That seems pretty locked to where those corners are. It's not moving all over the place. Even better, we can show this grid, and if we look at the grid and scrub through, the grid is moving as if it were stuck onto that surface, which is exactly what we want. We can see that these lines are parallel, and that's what we want to see. We want to see parallel lines. If we start moving this shape around, we can start to deform that grid to get it to line up even more precisely. You want this grid to be as accurate as possible. Now, if you want to define this even further, we can go back into our classic interface and we can use the adjust track module to really dial this stuff in. That is for a later date. This is basic stuff today, so let's move it along. So we want to get this data from Mocha into After Effects. How to do that? Well, we just hit save, cool, and then we close this window. And we want to get the tracking data. So we're going to go here to tracking data. We're going to create some track data. We're going to click on the tablet layer down here, put the gear on that, hit OK. And now all of this gets populated with some tracking data. How wonderful is that? We got the corner pin data, we got some scales, some rotations, some excellent stuff. Let's go to our screen, and this is what we want to stick onto the screen of the tablet. This has the same width and length ratio as the actual screen. I just used a ruler and measured it. So now we're just going to go Export Option, Corner Pin, Export to the screen, and apply. And oh, look at that. It's stuck it over here. Now it's doing that because the anchor points don't really match up between these two. So we can just select them, hit A to call up the anchor point data, copy this, paste it there, and now it goes right where it's supposed to. And wouldn't you know it, this is now stuck on the tablet, and it is really stuck there. One thing that I really recommend you do is pay attention to your motion blurs. So this layer is deforming a lot, but it doesn't have the same motion blur. It's way too crisp. So you'll want to kind of dull that down. And you might use things like the lens blur. So you might use the camera lens blur on here and set it to a radius of like 1 or 2, but you should be kind of blurring your elements to make them fit. You might have to use the old force motion blur on here, which will give us a little bit of that motion blurring as it's getting shaken around. If you were to turn motion blur on for the layer, it won't really do much because we're not doing anything with the specific position, scale, and rotation. All of its motion is being derived from corner pin data, which isn't really going to blur it out too much. So you might need to get a little blurry to make those things happen, but that's for any kind of corner pin. So let's move on and do the other thing that Mocha does very well, and that is rotoscoping. I need to roto this finger out of there because it does not belong behind the checkerboard. It belongs on top of the checkerboard, obviously. So we're going to go into that footage. I'm going to duplicate it and bring this up to the top. because I'm going to basically cut the finger out and just have a finger floating in space. That's the plan. So I'm going to launch up Mocha, and we're not going to look at these two layers. We're going to turn the gear off, because all we're going to do is draw a very, very good roto mask around the finger, and we're going to track it in place, and we're going to see how well that does. If you've done roto at all, then you know that this is not a very fun process. It's not good times, even a little. It's not even a little bit of a good time. We want to find a frame that's pretty clear. So we're going to grab our X spline. We could use Bezier splines, but an X spline I think is best whenever we have this kind of organic shape, and fingers are an organic shape. You can quote me on that, because they come from organisms. And I'm trying to do this with as few points as possible. So I'm really just trying to stick points on the parts that have the most change. So in the middle on the knuckle, in the middle on the knuckle, then over here, and then I right click to close that. So it's a few points. There's a few of them out here. We can smooth them one by one. We can select all of them here and try to smooth those out. Good, I think that's looking pretty close. Now I might just have to stretch these points a little bit here, and there we go. This looks like a pretty accurate shape, if you ask me. So now what we're going to do is this layer 3, which I'll rename to Finger Roto. We're going to go ahead and try to rotoscope this through. Now we can look at this in the Essential interface, or we can go to a Roto interface, which will allow us to track. It kind of changes our track controls to down here. So what we'll do is we will just start tracking this, maybe start hitting it a couple frames at a time to see how it starts to go. Ooh, this thing's starting to get out of hand. So we might track it forward and backward and see how that goes. Cool, keep it tracking, keep going. Doot, 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 doot. This is actually going a lot better than I might have thought. So there we go. Well, actually, I did this project already, so I kind of know how this is going to go. But yeah, tracking. We're just kind of checking to make sure, oh, this one's starting to get out of control. Ooh, I'm gonna rein that in. So we can just track back a bit. Doot, doot. And yeah, that is good. That's looking good. So let's keep tracking forward. Click, click. Oh no, we got to touch this up a little bit. There we go. Doot, doot, doot. And keep it going. And good. Now let's track forward. So again, we're tracking this finger. We're going to track the finger forward. Let's see how this does. Whoa, what's it doing? Where's it going over there? Wow, it's going crazy. So we're just automatically tracking this thing ahead. We're going to see how it goes. It gets really scrunched up and weird, but what tracker wouldn't at that point? Some of the things you can do to save yourself time is you can just stretch this out using the transform controls to make things like that happen. Nice. You might need to scrub through to see other areas where it's kind of getting a little deformed on you, kind of like this. And you can rotate this. You can get in here. The tool changes a little rotation tool just to touch it up a little bit if you need to. And you want to look for points, just as a general tip for rotoscope. You want to look for where it's on, and then if it's going to go off, find where it's gone off the most. So find where it's really extremely off model, and then you want to adjust that one. You want to adjust the one that is off the most, and then you may have to sort of dial back to the point where it really starts to just deviate off and make sure that that is okay. Because you don't want to mess with the frames where everything's totally fine and placid and life is good. But I think we've pretty much done it. I'm going to be happy with that. And we don't really need to worry about these frames too much, even though they're absolutely hideous, just because it's kind of turning into a blurry mess. So there we go. Let's go to... So you might need to go through and pay a little bit more attention to areas like this where things seem to be changing. Everything's changing. Just kind of make sure that these things are not getting out of control. You want to keep control of these points. There we go. Oh, didn't keep control of these points at all. So we're going to select those under control. Good. And you'll find parts that are quite blurry. So you see this is pretty blurry. So you want to kind of in the mid-range on that, kind of in the middle of this blurriness, because if we start feathering it, and we want it to go on either side of that boundary, if you're going to use motion blur, then you want to stick to the solid most part and let the motion blur kind of carry you through. So I think this is good. We're going to save this, and we're going to close, and now we're going to go into the matte options, the MATTE matte options. And we're going to view the matte. So the visible layer we're looking at is finger roto. Good. And you can see this mat of that finger. Cool finger. Nice. And then we can apply the mat. And as you can see, it has made, that mat applied all the way around this. Okay, that's fun. Now we can even go in here and feather this. So we can feather this by like 3 pixels. All right, 4 pixels maybe. And that kind of gives us this little blur around it, which might be good enough. I don't know. I don't know if it's good enough for you. It's really going to depend on what you can kind of get away with in there. Now, alternatively, we can apply things like force motion blur. We can take this layer and we can create After Effects masks rather than relying on the effect to do the work for us. We can have it create masks for us if we would like. So now we've got these lovely masks here. And now we can go into the mask and we can change its feather in here. We can grow and shrink the selection, all kinds of things. The world is our oyster at this point. But we've got a pretty reliable look going on. So from here, you would just need to put something actually interesting on the screen. And you can do that by just going in here and I don't know, maybe just typing out, "You're done," onto a layer here, and we'll just grow that up. Way, it's so cool. So then we put this in the middle and then turn off this other layer. And now when we go back to where it comes from. Boom, you're one. I don't mean to say that. I'm going to say you're done. But the point is, now you can see we've got some stuff on the screen. We can swap out its contents with whatever we want. It's corner pinned into place. And you'll notice the tracking didn't break at any point. If I can just a little humble brag on that, even though if we used a point tracker, it would be skidding all over the place because of these very similar pixels and similar pixels over there. So you can see how powerful planar tracking is, even with these very simple examples. If you like what you're seeing in Mocha and you want to get the Pro version, please use the link in the description, and your old buddy Evan will get a kickback from that. There are a lot of really great features in the Pro version that I get a lot of use out of, and we're going to be covering those in future tutorials, so stay tuned for that. If you've enjoyed learning a little bit about visual effects here, please subscribe to this channel. Talk about motion design, visual effects, After Effects, other excellent programs. And if you got stuck, if you had trouble with this tutorial, please let me know in the comments, and I'll try to help you out. If you're really stuck, or you just need footage to play with, why not download the project files for this tutorial? Head on over to evanabrams.com to get your hands on those. Links in the description and in the cards. And if you like learning about this stuff, then please subscribe to the channel. We've got great tutorials coming. We have some great live streams coming up. So make sure you subscribe to see all that great stuff. And if you do, I'll see you around the internet. Thanks again, and have a great day.